Good evening, class. My name is Maria Nunes. I'm gonna talk about human rights in the European Union. I'm gonna go over what are human rights in the European Union, the Lisbon Treaty, the chapter of fundamental rights, strategies to protect human rights, institutions protecting those rights, current issues concerning human rights in Europe. According to the United Nations, human rights are rights inherent to all human beings, regardless of race, sex, nationality, ethnicity, language, religion, or any other status. Human rights include the right to life, liberty, freedom from slavery and torture, freedom of opinion and expression, the right to work and education, and many more. Everyone is entitled to these rights without discrimination. In the European Union, there are two main streams of human rights policy and actions. One is to protect the fundamental human rights for European Union citizens, and the other is to promote human rights worldwide. To have a better understanding of the importance of a treaty in the European Union, we must know that the European Union is based on the rule of law. This means that every action taken by the European Union is founded on treaties that have been approved voluntarily and democratically by all European Union member countries. For example, if a policy area is not cited in a treaty, the Commission cannot propose a law in that area. A treaty is basically considered an agreement between the European Union member countries. The Treaty of Lisbon is the most important treaty in relation to human rights. It was signed on 13 December 2007 and entered into force on the 1st of December of 2009. With the entry into force of the Treaty of Lisbon in 2009, the rights, freedoms, and principles detailed in the chapter of fundamental rights became legally binding in the European Union and all member states. In the case where the chapter does not apply, the protection of fundamental rights is guaranteed under the constitutional traditions of European Union countries and international conventions that they have ratified, such as the ones with the United Nations. The treaty was a series of amendments to founding treaties of the European Union, such as the Treaty on European Union and the Treaty of the Functioning of the European Union. The European Union became the new type of human rights actors under the Lisbon Treaty. The European Union law provided the basis for its national laws members countries, but it previously provided real scope for directly challenging such as measures on human rights grounds. So the treaty employs two reforms to fix this challenge by giving legal effect to the chapter of fundamental rights that was previously only a political declaration, and by setting for the European Union agreements to the European Convention of Human Rights and Fundamental Freedoms, where the Union will establish the Strasbourg Court as a final authority on human rights standards in Europe. In the European Union law, is much stronger than international human rights law in member countries, since the organization that the name is the Court of Justice of the European Union can impose fines. Now I'm gonna over all the main articles about human rights. The first article states that Union is founded on the values of respect of human dignity, freedom, democracy, equality, the rule of law, and respect for human rights, including the rights of persons belonging to minorities. These values are common to the member states in a society in which pluralism, non-discrimination, tolerance, justice, solidarity, and equality between women and men prevail. In this article, of the Lisbon Treaty, states the main human rights on the chapter of fundamental rights. The second article states that in its relations with the water, where the United Nations should uphold, promote its values and interests, and contribute to the protection of its citizens. It should contribute to peace, security, the sustainable development of the earth, solidarity and mutual respect among people, free and fair trade, eradication of poverty, and the protection of human rights, in particular the right of the child, as well as the strict observance and the development of international law, including respect for the principles of the United Nations. The first article also that we can see here talk about some of the chapters in the fundamental rights, like protection, equality between women and men, all the protection of the child. In the second article, it makes international emphasis. The article states that the Union should offer its citizens an area of freedom, security, and justice without internal frontiers, in which the free movement of persons is ensured in conjunction with appropriate measurements with respect to external borders, controls, asylums, immigrations, and combating of crimes like human trafficking, tortures in some frontiers. The chapter of fundamental rights has 6 articles that are dignity, freedom, equality, solidarity, citizens' rights, and justice. And the 7th, which is the last one, deal with the provision for interpretation and applying the chapter. As we can see, the 4th title talks about dignity. It states about protect human dignity, that everyone has the right to life. In this case, death penalty is or execution is prohibited. Also states that everyone has the right to respect for his or her physical and mental integrity. In this case, the prohibition on making the human body and its part such as a source of financial gain. It states prohibition of torture and inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment, prohibition of slavery, forced labor, human traffic, like for example, human trafficking is prohibited. The second title is about freedom. It states the right to liberty and security, respect for private and family life, about harm communications, protection of personal data, right to marry and right to found a family, freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. For example, the freedom to manifest religions or belief in worship, teaching, practice, freedom of expression and information, basically in the media, freedom of assembly and association, like join trade unions or political parties, freedom of arts and science, to the right to education, freedom to choose an occupation and right to engage in work. In the European Union case, every citizen of the Union has the freedom to work. People with other nationality who are authorized to work in the territory of the member states have the same working rights to those of citizens of the Union. Freedom to conduct a business, right to property, like intellectual property, should be protect, the right to asylum, protection in the event of removal, expulsion, or extradition. No one may, like for example, no one may be removed if, for example, a person will be subject to death penalty or any torture if he's under extradition. The third title is about equality. It states equality before the law, non-discrimination, like based on sex, race, color, ethnic or social origin, language, religion belief, political belief, disability, age, or sexual orientation should be prohibited. Any kind of discrimination should be prohibited. Respect for cultural, religious, and linguistic diversity. Equality between women and men in terms of, for example, in terms of work, pay, the rights of the child, like protection and care, the right of the elderly, integration of people with disabilities. The fourth title is about solidarity. It states that workers' right to information and consultation, the right of individual people in workplace to come together and to choose a representative based on a majority vote, who will then negotiate with their employer over terms and conditions of employment, right of access to free placement services, like assistance in obtaining employment, protection in the event of unjustified dismal working conditions, which respect his or her health, safety, or integrity, like limitation in the maximum working hours, prohibition of child labor, protection to young people working, family and professional life protection, For example, the protection from disabled from a reason connected to maternity, the right to pay maternity leave in the case of social security and social assistances, protection in the case of loss of employment. This is very popular in Spain. When people is unemployed, they usually get unemployment benefits. These apply for everyone residing moving legally within the European Union. Healthcare, everyone in the European Union has the right to access to preventive health care, medical treatment, access to services for general economic assistance, environmental protection, and consumer protection. The fifth title is about citizens' rights, like the right to vote and to stand as a candidate for elections to the European Parliament and as a candidate at municipal elections, right to a good administration, like without corruption, right of access to documents, like any citizen of the Union and any natural or legal person residing or having its registered office in member states has a right of access to documents like ID card. European Ombudsman, that is organism that investigate complaints from individual business and organizations about maladministration by institutions, bodies, or agencies of the European Union. The only exception is for the Court of Justice. Right to petition, the right to petition the European Parliament, freedom of movements of residents. Citizens of the Union has the right to move and reside freely within the territory of the member states. In the case of non-citizens, freedom of movement and residence may be guaranteed to nationals of third countries legally residents in the territory of the member states. And the diplomatic and consular protections. The last title is about justice, the right to an effective remedy and to a fair trial. For example, everyone should have the possibility of being advised, defended, and represented, even if a person lacks sufficient resources. Presumption of innocence and right of defense, principle of legality and proportionality of crime, penalty, right to not be tried or punished twice in criminal processing for the same crime offense. Now I'm going to talk about strategies to protect human rights in the European Union. The Commission makes regular checks to ensure that its legislative proposal and acts are compatible with the chapter to improve the European Union citizens' understanding of fundamental rights protection within the Union, and to monitor the progress of the chapter's application through annual reports. The Council is the one that makes sure that fundamental rights are considered when developing European Union legislations and actions. It also works on the promotion of human rights in relation with non-European Union countries and international institutions, as well as in the negotiation of international agreements. Now I'm gonna do a quick review about institutions protecting human rights in the European Union. There is the European Union Agency for Fundamental Rights that basically advise institutions and national governments of fundamental rights, particularly in the area of discrimination, access to justice, racism, xenophobia, data protection, victims' rights, and children's rights. The second one is the European Institute for Gender Equality that basically promotes gender equality. The last one, the Advisory Committee on Equal Opportunities for Men and Women, that is a commission that implement activities in the community that promote equal opportunities for women and men. There are some issues concerning human rights in the European Union. According to my research, the Council of Europe Commissioner for Human Rights, Dugna Mijatovic, she states that there is current attacks on people wearing religious symbols and attacks on places of cult have recurred in several European countries. Hate speech and crimes against Roma is still happening. Concerns about European countries' handling of migrants and asylum seekers. There is a lot of people attempting to cross border. In some member states, severe humanitarian crises regarding receptions conditions have been developed or worsened. Women are also still confronted with various obstacles such as gender pay gap, the freedom to speak and manifest. This scene has also come under frequent attack. Several peaceful demonstrations have been seriously injured through the disproportionate use of force by the police. Concerns about balance between technological development and human rights protection. I hope you have enjoyed my presentation and thank you for hearing.